Welcome back to the Haircuts and Uppercuts podcast. I'm delighted to be joined by Shane Watson from S-Jam Boxing. How are you doing?
Very good, mate. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. And thanks for coming on and giving us your time. It's something I've been wanting to get you on a podcast for a while. It's intriguing. How did you get into boxing the way you are now? Because you seem to have rise through the ranks very quickly. I know S-Jam came out of the old Haymaker promotions, and they seem to be going full steam ahead. Got some great fighters signed up already, and making huge moves in boxing.
Yeah, well, I've always been a massive boxing fan, really. Since I was a kid, mostly influenced from my brother. Then I went to university, studied journalism and media, did a master's in events management. So yeah, it's got a quick call. But master's in events management, and but while I was at uni, I started my own media channel called PSP Sports that me and my best friend Pav started up, and we were interviewing boxing stars from all over the world, like Floyd Mayweather on the channel. We had obviously Conor McGregor, obviously known as MMA. We have Anthony Joshua on there, Tyson Fury, Lennox Lewis, everyone. We had everyone there, and obviously that's just the big names. Obviously, we had a lot of smaller names on there as well. And yeah, we did that. Traveled all around the country, traveled everywhere, go and interview people all the time. And as we were getting older and coming out of university, we were looking for more careers. That was just more experience, open up our contact books and whatnot, really. And I started to grow out, and maybe it wasn't too much of my interest about interviewing people anymore. I don't feel like I was that great at it, and I just felt like from what I was doing was getting quite repetitive. So I knew Adam Morley and Sam Jones fairly well. Adam Morley a bit better because I'd been working around the Haymaker gym quite a bit, interviewing people, and Adam was always good and accommodating for us to come down the gym and stuff. So yeah, and then they got in contact with me 25, that's about 3 years ago. And yeah, they wanted me a part of the team. At the time, it was just those two. And they wanted to bring someone else in that they trust and that they liked me for, that knew the game inside out, and they chose me. Yeah, now we're here, really.
Yeah, it's quite mad to think how you started off, doing what I'm doing and ended up working in boxing. Obviously, we've only just got going and we haven't had big names on yet, but it's just mad to think you started off doing a similar thing and ended up working for S-Jam.
Yeah, no, it's just, do you know what it is? One bit of advice I would give to people, like, if you love something enough, you just will keep grafting away until it works out the way you want it to. Like, my friend Pav actually left the sport because he just didn't really want to work in it, interviewing or doing anything anymore at all. And but I decided not to give up. I kept trying and working away, trying to find like a breakthrough kind of thing, really, and it just did. And now basically I do my dream job in most ways, really. But yeah, no, it's really good. It's like, just always say to people, just keep grafting away, and eventually it'll work out for you. People, one thing that never goes unnoticed is hard work. People always recognise when people work hard. So I just kept grafting away, and eventually now it's starting to work out for me.
Do you think that mindset, coupled with your experiences, is what helps you understand the fighters? Because obviously, they have to keep telling themselves, one more round, one more set, another mile, another 5K, and because they're not born world champions. There is a process to get there, isn't there? And you see some fighters over time, they have not dedicated themselves properly.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. You get a good understanding of the sport, and you can always see when people cut corners. You can see everything that way. Like, I was good friends with Lauren Richards before S-Jam even signed him or even talking to him. I've been good friends with Lauren since he was about 20 years old. So we're talking about 9 or so years now. And like, so I actually had a better understanding of Lauren than what Sam and Adam even did when they signed him. And that was before even I was on. But then actually, just as I came on board, I think. But yeah, you get a good understanding of everything, like behind the scenes, how things work, fighters making weight, training, all different kinds of things, nutrition, everything. Obviously, you see a lot of the politics in the sport work behind the scenes, a lot of what I have to work with day to day. So yeah, you get a good understanding of all those kind of things, really.
So do you get the impression that boxing is well and truly back this upcoming weekend? You know, massive stadium show at Tottenham.
Oh, what? Sorry.
Do you get the idea that boxing is well and truly back after COVID with, Tottenham this weekend?
Yeah, yeah. Listen, boxing will always be like this, though. Boxing, with or without COVID, will always have events that are maybe not so great for the sport, like Evander Holyfield fighting Victor Belfort, and like Riddick Bowe fighting next month, which is ridiculous. And there'll always be big fights. Like you said, AJ against Usyk. We've got a good show in Liverpool on October the 9th. We've got Terence Crawford fighting Sean Porter now, which is a great fight. Canelo versus Caleb Plant. We had Canelo against Billy Joe Saunders earlier in the year. I mean, like, boxing's always there. It's just sometimes the best fights don't get made, and sometimes the best fights do get made. And I feel like that's just where we're at, really. We've got Wilder against Fury in 3 weeks. I mean, we've got loads of massive shows happening. And she also had Josh Warrington as well. Like, I know what you mean. You're on about those stellar, massive shows that, like.
No, I'm on about with, as you know, fans being back in that capacity. As a boxing fan, obviously, I was very grateful that promoters was putting shows on in lockdown. But the fact that you can now go and sit with 20,000 people at the O2, 80,000 people at a stadium, that really gets your juices flowing again as a fan.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously, I mean, it takes an Anthony Joshua to get them kind of numbers, and I don't think there's another fighter in British boxing anyway that can get those kind of numbers in any kind of fight. I mean, I think Tyson Fury in a right fight probably could do, but we're talking about in any kind of fight, like Anthony Joshua could probably literally fight my nan and probably sell 70,000 seats, and that's just the reality of it, really. But yeah, no, it's great for the sport. I mean, it's great to get the casual fans back in as well, get them interested in the sport, because if we're honest, there is no boxing without the casual fans. I mean, as much as it's good to have hardcore fans, and as boring as they are, there isn't enough of them to keep the sport thriving and keeping the sport with one of the biggest sports in the world. So keeping the casual fans interested and paying up is really important, especially, like you said, after the pandemic we've had. So yeah, it's really, I think boxing is as strong as it's ever been, really, at the moment. I mean, like I said, we've got loads of massive fights. We've finally got Terence Crawford in a big fight against a PBC fighter, Sean Porter. I mean, that's a massive fight. You've got Fury against Wilder coming up again, another massive fight. Obviously, you've got Fury AJ next weekend with a decent undercard. Even the Fury Wilder undercard is actually really good, actually. And there'll be some more big shows announced 40 years out as well, I'm sure. I mean, I know Joyce is going to have a big fight announced soon as well. Like, you know, boxing is doing well. I mean, even at Joe Joyce's last fight at Wembley Arena, that sold out Wembley Arena. It was a big improvement for Joe since before the Dubois fight. Yeah, I'd say British boxing, or boxing as a whole, is in a good place. I just think the only thing that potentially harms the sport is these crazy cards that keep happening sometimes. Like Evander Holyfield versus Victor Belfort. You know, I don't mind it so much when it's a YouTuber fighting another YouTuber, because it's like almost having a white collar fight, isn't it? Like, there's two guys the same level, probably around the same age, and no one's really going to get hurt. I mean, essentially anyone can get hurt anytime, but that's a risk you're never going to erase. But it's like a lot less likely when you're putting a 58-year-old Evander Holyfield, who's a legend of our sport, someone we should actually feel like we should protect anyway. After what he's done for us, we should give back in return. That's the only ways that sports like boxing really gets damaged, as things like that, because then it puts the sport in bad light. Imagine if Evander Holyfield came out there with severe head injuries or something like that, then it does actually put the sport in a really bad light. And things like this can really trouble the sport moving forward in the sense of like actual shows going ahead and stuff like that. Tony Bellew came out and said something about it recently. It's like the whole Peds thing, like the whole Oscar Valdez thing. And he's like, what happens if Oscar Valdez went in there and really hurt his opponent? What was that going to do to boxing after allowing him to fight after he failed a drug test? I'm saying that it could potentially cancel out the sport. And things like that can cancel out the sport because we have rules and regulations for reasons. And if they're not followed and people get hurt in there, it's a very tough place to come back from.
Yeah, I completely agree with these stupid Mickey Mouse fights that are going on. You know, as much as I don't like them, I did watch the Hay Fournier fight in the morning when I woke up. Probably the biggest David Hay fan you'd ever met. And I saw it for what it was. It was a glorified sparring session. And it's just a shame that that didn't happen with Evander Holyfield because, like I say, 58 years old, he could have got seriously hurt, could damage the sport. But it's not on. It's with Oscar Valdez. I think there needs to be like a unified body for all the drugs testing because in competition, out of competition mean different things with different. USADA, WADA, and VADA all have different opinions on that. And
I agree. I think it would make it a lot easier. I think, unfortunately, boxing's the one sport that would never be like that. It won't ever have like a FIFA or a UEFA or something like that, or like the tennis, like the LTA and things like that, and like golf, like PJ and all that stuff. I won't ever really have something like that. It's not like where the UFC, like where they've just got the whole governing body for that. Obviously, I know UFC isn't a sport; it's a brand, but like where they can dictate and ban and do this and do that, even though they don't really ban any of their fighters anyway, that fail drug test. But yeah, boxing will never be clear like that. I feel like that is a major problem. Like this is what you're saying, like the whole WADA, VADA, in testing, out testing. At the end of the day, if you sign up to VADA, you should stick by VADA's rules. That is it. It is quite simple. It doesn't actually have to be that complicated as people make it out to be. If you sign up with just WADA, then you wouldn't have failed, would you? But if you sign up to VADA, then you have failed. Point blank, you have failed, which means you should then be banned. And that's it. It's like if you sign up to something and you don't stick to the rules in anything in life, you get punished for it. So, but he's not getting punished for it. So it doesn't really make sense. Billy Joe Saunders did the same thing. He failed a drugs test because of a nasal spray, he said, or whatever. But what he took wasn't banned with WADA, but it was banned with VADA. But he signed up to VADA and WADA drug test. So that means that you failed the VADA test, which I believe is why he got banned for 6 months in the end, and he got given a heavy fine. So that is a punishment. Okay, do I think it's a harsh punishment for failing drug test? No, I probably don't. But he got punished. And it's just weird that Oscar Valdez, and there's a little bit of a thing going on in that camp. There's quite a few fighters have failed drug tests now, and because this doesn't seem to be the punishment there, and it's weird. It's like, I don't know how you can talk yourself out of it. If you fail a drug test, point blank, you should be punished. That's it. There was a fighter from the UK called Liam Cameron. I don't know if you remember him. He's the ex-Commonwealth champion. He got caught with in a drug test doing recreational drugs. I think it was cocaine or something he did, and he got banned for 4 years. Right. That's not even performance enhancing drug. And as much as I'm not saying I agree with what he did and what he's doing, obviously I don't. But if I was going to fight anyone and like to be safe, I would fight someone that was on recreational drugs rather than performance enhancing drugs, right?
At least you know they've been partying and not training.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. If anything, it's probably an advantage for me over him. So it's I don't understand why that is or how that's worked out. Where a guy can literally take peds, which is going in there to potentially really, really harm someone, maybe even kill them. And you've got another guy who's just probably partying a bit too much. I think you were saying how he's going through a lot of mental health issues at the time, which is probably the opposite. And he's been banned for 4 years. It's crazy. I don't really understand how it works. This is why it's important what you said. Like, if there's one whole sanctioning body or governing body, then things like this will be a lot more simpler and easier to follow. But with this sport, when it's big names and people are bringing a lot of money and people have a lot of power, often the rules go out the window, as we've seen many times before.
Yeah, cool. It happens in more than just boxing, though, doesn't it? It's the big names that bring in the money always kind of get things brushed under the carpet, and that's because that's just business. It's what happens, unfortunately. But
that is it, yeah.
And it just seems to be everyone in Eddie Reynoso's camp's untouchable.
Sorry?
Seems to be everyone in Eddie Reynoso's camp seems to be untouchable.
It is a weird one. I feel like sometimes when gyms, this does happen quite. I mean, it's happened to gyms in the UK as well. I feel like if there is a fighter that is continued, not just one fighter, fighters that are continuously fading from the same camp, things do need to be looked into because not everything can just be a coincidence, can it? I mean, sometimes I guess maybe it could be, but like I think sometimes you've got to be a bit realistic. I saw an interview with Boxing News that someone close to Canelo's camp was saying that Eddie Reynoso had said it's almost too easy to fail a drug test. I mean, like, how would you even know that? How would you even? I don't even know how you would know that. Like, look, touch wood, none of our fighters ever failed a drug test, and I can't see why they ever would. But we wouldn't even know if it's easy to fail a drug test because we've never like anticipated to do it, or like, so how would we know if it's easy or not? We get our fighters get drug tested pretty much for every fight, especially Joe is he's WBC world ranked and whatnot, so you have to enlist testing year out, like any day they could have at his house. And all of our fighters have always been fine, and it's just I find it crazy to even for someone like Eddie Venoso, who all of these fighters should be rigorously drug tested anyway because of the level they're fighting at. To say something like that just sounds a bit bizarre to me. I don't get, even if you did think that, I don't get why you would say it, but yeah, it's a bit bizarre. But something needs to be looked into because look, at the end of the day, I'd rather people find out something now than it be finding out after a tragedy in the ring, and we all look and say, well, we knew it was going to happen at some point, but no one did anything about it. It shouldn't take for someone to get really hurt or potentially worse for people to wake up and think, yeah, let's take action against this. Let's just do it before.
Yeah, it needs to be done. I was at York Hall on the weekend watching the Steve Goodwin show, and you look at them small hall fighters and they're doing exactly the same job as the bigger names like Canelo, getting paid a fraction of the money, and there isn't the funding for drug testing there. Yet I would probably bet my mortgage that 99% of them fighting on the small hall shows are clean. And they're getting paid 1,500 quid, £2,000, maybe at the most, some of them.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, some of these fighters, when they're taking drugs, German have been a great example. It's a mental thing. They literally can't like fight or live in their head without taking drugs. It's just a mental edge and without it, they won't have that edge. German would have been a great example of that. I mean, it just literally like continuously were failing drug tests for the same drugs, for like the craziest kinds of drugs as well. And that's what it is. I mean, some fighters out there, but they don't need that mental edge. You know, it's just different. Everyone's different in that sense. But like, something needs to be done about it. But I think it's more wishful thinking. I don't think too much will be done about it. Like I said, like it's almost forgotten news after a couple of weeks, isn't it? And everyone stops talking about it, and then you move on to the next thing, and then bang, it happens again, and then you move on to the next thing. Boxing moves quite fast that way. I literally feel like we'd have to take something quite tragic to happen for anyone to take any real action against it.
Yeah, hopefully nothing tragic does happen because boxing seems to be growing again in the UK with obviously Eddie's gone full in with DAZN. Sky have now got Wasserman and Boxer on board. There's seems to be more outlets now to watch proper boxing in the UK, and that can only be good for the sport.
Absolutely. No, it's amazing for the sport. I mean, the more broadcasters, the better at the end of the day. I mean, there's more opportunities for fighters that maybe on the small shows, like you see Boxer have signed and Wasman have signed loads of fighters from the small circuits, which is great. That means they're going to get paid properly for once, and they're going to get the chance to expose their skills on national television or on massive subscription channels. And also, it's going to enhance the chance for them to get good sponsorships. With good sponsors, going to want to get behind fighters that are fighting on TV and fighting regularly on TV. So it's great all round, and it obviously pumps a lot more money into the sport, which is great, and more people are watching it that way. Yeah, no, it's great. It's great news. I mean, I think the Zone's doing very well so far by the looks of things in their viewing figures. Sky, Boxer, and Wasserman have announced some very good shows together, which I'm looking forward to. Some good undercards. You've got McKenzie doing his thing on Channel 5. You've got a few decent cards here and there. And you've got BT that are doing some decent shows, decent cards. They've got a few more to announce soon, which is going to be good. So it's great. I mean, you've got Fight Zone are doing their thing. They're doing quite cool. I think Fight Zone are quite quirky now. I think they're a little bit under the radar at the moment, but they're doing good. They've got good title fights in their shows, IBF European, IBF International title fight, which for cards at their level, for essential small boxing, that's really impressive. So they're doing good. They're getting fighters more opportunities as well. Almost every small show now is almost being streamed or televised in some kind of way, which is good because I think Fight Zone have one or two a weekend now, don't they? So
yeah, they had Cash Ali defending his IBF European title on Saturday, didn't they? On there.
Yeah, I see that. I'm not too sure on his opponents. I think they're almost a little bit ridiculous, to be honest. Like his opponents, so I don't see how you can fight for a title and fight those kind of guys, but it is what it is. I don't think IBF European gets you world rank. But I'm aware that on the 8th of October, Ashley Sexton fights for the IBF International title on Mo Pryor show. And that's for the IBF International. So he'll be world ranked if he wins that, Ashley Sexton, which would be good for him. But yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of these international titles, I'm completely honest, because I'm not sure what they make the champion of. They make the champion of a world ranking, which doesn't essentially mean you're the champion of anything. But if it gets fighters opportunities and it gets them bigger paydays, then good luck to them. But it's just it just seems like a way of getting around the system rather than the fighting good fighters in a way. So, like, for example, Lerone Richards went on to win the European title, but yet someone who's could have fought like 10 nobodies for the WBO European would get a world title opportunity before he would, after fighting much better fighters. And that's the only problem with the international titles. They almost seem to be like sanctioning fee titles rather than being the champion of anything.
Yeah, I completely agree in that aspect. We are kind of supporters of the Bin the Belts campaign at Haircuts and Uppercuts. And WBO European, IBF European. As much as I like Richard Towers and I like Cash Ali, there's only one European title belt, and everyone knows that.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? I've seen people, right, and I've had fighters that have won some of these belts, right? So Lerone won the WBO European. Lerone never went around and called himself the European champion, point blank, when he had that belt. Lerone won that belt when he was 8 or 9, something like that. And he won that belt on a charity show for Frank Warren. It wasn't even televised. The only reason why he fought for that belt, because this is before he's even with us, is to get opportunities moving forward. He just wanted to get on TV fighting for some kind of belt to bring something to the table and earn some decent money. But he would never call himself the European champion. I've seen people that win these IBF European, WBO European, they don't put that before they call themselves a champion. They just call themselves the European champ.
Yeah.
And like casual fans, like people's mums and dads will think that they're the genuine European champion because they don't understand this at all, right? And it's like, I don't see why they keep calling themselves that when they're not. It's literally not. Do you know if you fight for a WBO European, you can't even fight for the real European title within 2 years of holding it, because it's a thing that the European have done to take action against these kind of European belts. Right. So I don't know why they call themselves that. They fight some random guy who probably have a record of like 15-4, never fought outside of his home country, never really fought anyone. Well, he lost a few people that are not actually that great either. And then they'll get a WBO European title shot because they're ranked inside the top 200 and then call themselves European champion. But everyone knows you can't be a real European champion in easy fights. No. You just don't get mandated. Like, even look at now, the European heavyweight have mandated. So it would have been Joyce against Marco Huck, but we didn't really fancy Marco Huck because it's a step down in our opinion. They mandated Dylan White and Marco Huck. Now, you would never get a fight like that for a WBO European title, do you know what I mean? Or an IBF European title. Instead, and with all respect to Cash Ali, because Cash Ali is a good fighter and he's actually a really nice bloke as well. And he grafts really hard and whatnot. And like I said, fair play to him for taking these shots because it might propel him to something bigger. I mean, that's probably what he needs, especially after like the whole David Price incident and whatnot. But Cash Ali against that geezer who was 7-1 the other day, who was absolutely, his opponent was atrocious, like awful. He didn't deserve the pay whatever he got because it's just not good enough. And and that's not Cash Ali's fault, but you would never get that for a real European title fight. So I just don't get why people call themselves the European champion when they really aren't.
Yeah, I can see why the fighters are doing it, fighting for these belts, trying to get ranked and get their name out there, like you say. And most people only know Cash Ali because of the David Price incident, but he is a nice bloke, and his coach Richard Towers is probably one of the loveliest guys I've ever met. And I'm not going to sit here and slag them off for going the route they're going, but it's I'm not going to sit and contradict what I've said in other podcasts. I don't believe in these belts at the same time because, like I say, it's Mickey Mouse at times.
In boxing, promoters, managers, fighters, trainers, we owe the sport good fights because that's what makes the sport a great sport, and that's the only way people keep watching. Having all these international titles, and there's a new one every week, like, honestly, I can't believe the man around now, makes it a lot harder to make for good fights because there's other ways for fighters, managers, trainers, promoters to get around them now. Like I said, like, you'll get Prince Patel defend some random belts from abroad about 28 times against people we've never heard of, and then somehow get a world title shot. You get it with other fighters as well. Loads of fighters do this all the time, and this is the problem. Like, I remember when Razvan Kunjanu, who, with all due respect to him, isn't the best of heavyweights, got a world title shot against Joseph Parker in New Zealand because he won some WBO European against some geezer I've never heard of. and you got a world heavyweight title shot. Now, back in the day, even just to fight for a world heavyweight title, you had to be an unbelievably talented fighter. And look at some of the fighters back in the day that never even got a world title shot, that were great fighters, because it was so hard to get that level. Now, it's so much easier to even win a world title alone. Like, sometimes you have 5 world champions in a weight class, 2 in the same governing body. It's just outrageous. Like, back in the day, to be a world champion, you had to be the best of the best. Now, and even just to fight for one, in some cases, you had to be 2. But now it's just like they hand them out like it's going out of fashion, and that's the problem with the sport. Is that there are too many world champions, too many people don't have to fight each other, and too many people can find ways without having to fight each other. And that's the issue that we have, really. I see the WBA have made a little bit of a cutback with the interim titles, which I guess is a step in the right direction. Is it the finished article? No, it's not, because there's still a lot more hard work to do, but I guess it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, it seems to be just people after sanction fees. Well, that's from a boxing fan's perspective. It feels like IBF, WBO, they're just trying to take their cut of the fighters' money whilst they're coming up. That's obviously an opinion, not a fact. That's just the way I look at it as a boxing fan.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of work needs to be done. Whether it will be, whether it won't be, remains to be seen. But we'll see how we get on with it. I mean, I guess scrapping the WBA interim, that's one less champion in the weight division, ain't it? But like I said, there's a lot more work to go. It's hard to even keep up because like every card I look at, there's another random belt that comes out. Like you've got WBA International, WBA Continental, WBA Intercontinental. There's like WBA. Well, there was WBA Interim. There's WBA Gold. There's WBA Regular. There's WBA fucking Super Champ. There's a lot of champions there, and it becomes. I think they even have a youth champion as well, whatever that even means. But like, there's a lot of these random things, but it's all sanctioned fees, all money, and that's what sports is. It's like you can get to a world title shot by having a guy behind you that's financially wealthier than the other guys that are a lot better than you behind them, because they can get you WBA title fights and get you them defending them against nobody constantly. Then eventually you're fighting for a world title, maybe you shouldn't be.
It's refreshing to speak to someone, especially someone who works in boxing, has the same outlook as at haircuts and uppercuts, because it's not often you're going to hear people talk like that who work in boxing. And I think more promoters and people who work in boxing need to come out and say it as well. I know Eddie's said things on the lines before as well.
I mean, the problem is, like, it's tough because you've always got to keep a good relationship with these people, because you've got to remember you represent people and you're always going to want opportunities for them.
Yeah.
So governing bodies wouldn't like you really speaking out about it too much. So it is difficult. Like, I haven't got anything personal against any of the sanctioning bodies or any of the governing bodies, because in some ways they do great jobs, and they like WBC, they've got WBC Cares and stuff like that, and they give back to vulnerable people in the sport. And they do genuinely help people, and I mean they have caught a lot of drug cheats as well. But I just think that, listen, sport's never going to be perfect. No sport is ever perfect. But what I think needs to happen is just a bit of like a cleanse. And what that means is not so many belts in boxing. Belts shouldn't be handed out. And have one champion per governing body would make a lot more sense as well. Because right now, like, you got WBA regular champions calling themselves world champions. But I mean, are they? Because you can't unify with that belt. You also aren't even the sole champion of that governing body, because there's one above you. So it's hard to even call them a genuine world champion, because it's like, well, how can you be? Like, world champion in a division is meant to mean you're at the top, right? And if you're not even at the top of your own governing body, how can you be called a world champion? It's like, should we just start recognizing those other belts as world champions? And it's got the same level of like excellent recognition, really, isn't it? But I don't know. We'll see how it all goes. I mean, there's a lot more pressure on it these days, which is a good thing. A lot more people speak out about it. It's a lot more articles on it. I know World Boxing News do a lot to clamp down on it. But it is what it is. I mean, in ways I can see why they do it as well. I mean, you put like a WBA international title on the title of the fight, instantly more fans want to watch. More of your family and friends are more interested when it comes to ticket sales. Obviously, you do the 10 rounders, minimum 10 rounders for title fights. So I can see why in ways they do it. But obviously, it doesn't mean I essentially like agree. I mean, like, it's a shame. Like people like Conor Benn, who obviously is a very good fighter, comes from a fighting family, and his dad's a massive fighting man, obviously. And I think the only belt he's ever won is a WBA Continental. He's never fought for the Commonwealth. He's never fought for the English. He's never fought for the British. He's never fought for the Southern Area. He's never fought for the European. But he's got some WBA Continental belt, and he constantly defends that. And I think he's like number 6 in the world now, or something like that, or number 5 in the world. And it's a shame because, especially being a Ben as well, and after like knowing his dad's values, we've never to hold a British title or Commonwealth or anything of that level. It's a shame, really. It would be. I'm assuming they're quite nice mantelpieces to have, and I mean that's what was good about Chris Eubank Jr. winning the British title, because his dad never won the British title, so that was quite cool. But yeah, it's a shame that people don't feel the need always to win those belts anymore, that they've lost their value a little bit. And that's what these international titles do. They make the important belts, like the British, the English, the Commonwealth, the European, lose a bit of value. And that's a shame about it.
Yeah, it is. I can see why, fighters go from, like we've touched on earlier, it helps them with the rankings, and like I say, it can help the ticket sales and stuff. So, I'm not arrogant enough to think from one side. I can see both sides of it. And which brings me on to, obviously, your fighter, Florian Marku. He is in an IBF International welterweight title fight this weekend. Obviously, he can't fight for the British. He's not a British fighter. And that's...
We've got this recently, actually. So sometimes we come under, we get some random comments and stuff like that. Someone says, why don't Florian fight for the British title? And it's like, well, obviously he can't fight for the British title because he's Albanian. So that's the way it is. Thing is, for Florian, I'll be quite blank honest about it. He's coming off a good win against Wyland Charlton. Before that, he had not such impressive performance against Jamie Stewart. Florian's got a massive opportunity against an undefeated fighter in Maxime Proden, who can punch very hard, on the undercard of Anthony Joshua. Now, Maxime Proden is the IBF International Champion, which he won on a Matchroom Italy show, I believe, I can't remember who it was against someone. And the opportunity came up to fight for the belt on a Matchroom show, not just a Matchroom show, on Anthony Joshua's undercard. And some opportunities, especially after not such a great performance 2 fights ago, but a decent performance against Wyland Charlton last time out, yeah, they're too good to turn down. And there's no problem with that. That's like what I was saying. There's no problem with Cash Ali fighting for the IBF European. If he calls himself the IBF European champion, I have no problem with it. So when people start going around calling themselves the European champion and stuff like this, and essentially for Florian to get an opportunity to fight someone like Conor Benn, which is what he wants and what we all want, he needs to beat someone like Maxime Proden and potentially get a world ranking, and to maybe offer something to the table. That's what Conor Benn keeps saying. He doesn't bring anything to the table, and essentially he might bring a little bit of something to the table then. And yeah, and obviously fighting on an AJ undercard, you win on an AJ undercard, you win well. Your name, the match is fine, already got a massive name, but your name in the UK will just be a lot bigger. And the demand will be a lot more for the fight. But yeah, I'm not essentially 100% against all of the international titles. I'm just against the amount that there are, and that's what the problem is. Like when some governing bodies, like I said, when the IBF have all of these international, or the WBA might have them, or the WBC or the WO, this is too much. And we've got people calling themselves the European champion when they're not. It's just like, well, casual fans are going to believe that the European champion because they're not going to understand the difference, whereas others may do. But yeah, I'm not a massive fan of the international titles, whether our fighters are fighting for them or not. Just because I said it's not like really the champion of something. Like if you're the champion of the Southern Area, you're the champion of the Southern Area. The champion of England, if you're English champion, you're the champion of England, or if you're like so on and so forth through all the belts.
No, I think it's a really tough fight for Florian, though. It is, if he comes through this, which I mean, everyone will be expecting him to. That's a huge statement.
Listen, Florian will fight anyone. This is the thing. Like he just needs this kind of win to propel himself on that scene with those kind of fighters a little bit, and that's what this fight is. It is beating a guy that's 19-0 with I think 16 or 17 knockouts and Maxime Proden. Will propel him onto that kind of a scene, and that's what he needs on a big show. And then he can start fighting all of these guys, and he can fight for proper belts, like maybe Europeans or thing is, when you are just like European, like what Florian is, that's all you can really fight for. Or it's a world title. Like, there's not a lot of other. It's not like he can fight. Like I said, he can't fight for a British title or anything. So there's not a lot of options that way. But like, maybe he could fight for a European, and then maybe he could fight in eliminator down the line at some point when he's got a bit more experience, and maybe when he's earned it a bit more. But you know, that's why he needs this fight, because he hasn't really got the chance or opportunity to fight these other bigger guys because he hasn't earned it yet. But I think after beating someone like Maxime Podin, if he can beat him the way that we think he can, like, we can start looking at some of these big fights getting made, like the Conor Benns of the world, maybe Avanesian or whoever else, Eku Esserman, all these kind of guys.
Yes, I can see why he's taken it. Obviously, he's a challenger. It's an opportunity on a huge undercard. Why not? And going against someone who's 19-0 when you've only had 8 fights takes some serious balls. A guy, like you said, he will fight anyone, won't he? He's mad.
Now, you got to remember, Florian hasn't been in the sport of boxing for that long of a time. Like, obviously comes from an MMA background, kickboxing background. I think probably some other random combat sports as well. But so, like, for him, he has to jump opportunities like this and take fights like this because he hasn't had this whole amateur and whatnot background. So these opportunities for him they're really big because, like I said, he hasn't fought in the ABAs or gone to the Olympics or fought in the Commonwealth Games or anything like that. He's never had that experience. He's come into boxing, and fair play to him. He's fought everyone he's fought has come to win. Been guys that winning records constantly throughout. You see guys that go and win Olympic gold medals and they even do things like that. So in fairness to him, this is why I don't really give him stick, because to come into a sport that they're not very experienced and you haven't really done much of, and to fight. Okay, I'm not saying they've been the most notable names, but to come in and fight guys with winning records that are generally coming to win from the offset is quite impressive in my opinion. I mean, he beat, was it Nathan Bender? Nathan Bender went out on that MTK show and beat that star kid that was 7-0 on points. And he was meant to be a next big thing, that 7-0 guy coming through. And Florian beat him comfortably one hand. Like, so, you know, it's so Florian is a little bit different to maybe some other fighters in the sense of like the way he's come through and his background. I mean, obviously he's lucky enough to have a great loyal fan base that follow him in massive numbers everywhere. So yeah, it's interesting. But
I think he's building a big fan base in the UK as well because of his fighting style and his have gum shield, will fight attitude.
Florian sells out every arena he fights in. Like when he's headlining on like those boxer cards he used to do, he'd put a couple of thousand down, no problem. Every ticket he was given would be sold, and there'd be such a huge demand for more. That guy could sell out an arena fighting a German. I'm not even having a laugh with you. I swear to God, that guy's got an unbelievable loyal fan base that travel from all over the world to see him. And hopefully in the future we get to see him in some big, massive stadium fights, fighting for titles as well. That's the plan. I mean, if Florian comes through well against Maxime Podin, we do have some potential plans for him to fight in Albania. That's something that the country deserves after their support they've given him, for us to go to them for once rather than always having to travel to see him. And it'd be good for the zone to launch in Albania in that sense. Obviously, they've already launched in Albania. That'd be a massive chance to really go big with the zone out there. And I think Florian does a great job of that so far as it is. So, yeah, it's interesting. We'll see how we get on. Obviously, we've got a massive fight, the hardest fight of his career first. So you can't look too far ahead. But that's how I dropped to always plan the next step, no matter what happens. And that's kind of a few of the things we've got in the pipeline for him.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching. I do like watching Florian Marku. And when he fought Ryland Charlton, you know, Ryland was coming off of a great performance. Florian, like I said, was coming off of not so great performance.
Yeah.
And he got the job done and got everyone, you know, back on side again, so to speak. Because I won't forget that fight. It was brilliant. I thought it should have been stopped sooner. I thought Charlton was getting absolutely battered.
I mean, it did look like at that one stage, didn't it? I mean, he was getting called a lot. Charlton, he got the knockdown on Florian, probably gave him a little bit of momentum. And Florian ended up getting the stoppage. But yeah, no, it was a good fight. Ryan Charlton's a game guy, man. He punches, he's strong, he's come forward, he's tough. Yeah, and I'm sure he got a good fight on the Liverpool card, which I think it will come through against a 10-0 guy. So yeah, I mean, Ryan Charlton's no walkover. You know, he's a tough fight for anybody. He's a good fighter, game tough, strong, coming in a lot of momentum. Like you said, career best win on 2 weeks' notice against, I think it was even less than that actually, against Joe Lord. I think about 9 or 10 pounds above his actual fighting weight. So fair play to him at the end of the day, and I wish One China the best in Liverpool card. But yeah, Florian, that was only about, even against One China, that was only about 20% of what Florian can do, man. He showed his jab a lot more in that fight, which is good and important because he actually has got boxing ability. But he's starting to gel a bit more with Clifton Mitchell now, which is good and whatnot, because they don't even work together for a short amount of time for that fight actually. And even then, he got silly and got involved and started trading and started showboating when he didn't need to, which hence why the knockdown happened. But I think you'll see a much more improved and different Florian Marku come 25th September. But we shall see.
How do you think the main event's going to go? Because obviously, if the AJ Fury fight would have happened, it would have been Joyce Usyk fighting.
Yeah. I mean, Usyk against Josh is such an interesting. I keep changing my mind on this. The one thing I don't agree with, which I'm seeing a lot online at the moment, I'm quite respectful people in the sport as well, which is even more weird. But where they just think that Josh was going to bowl over Usyk, I almost can't even believe what I'm hearing. You'd almost think that Usyk is Eric Molina or something, the way they're going on. I don't understand it. Usyk is an unbelievable, formidable talent that you won't really see much of in the sport again for a long time anyway. He went to the cruiserweight division, dominated pretty much every round of every fight he had, apart from he lost a couple in the Bradis fight, but there's no shame neck. Bradis in the league fight as well. Went to their backyards constantly. He went to, I think, Russia. He went to Latvia. He went to America to fight Michael Hunter. He went to England to fight Bellew. He went everywhere. He went to Poland to fight Glowacki. He went to all these countries back to back. Won the World Boxing Super Series. Won against Bellew. Whatnot. Had these couple of heavyweight fights. Give the guy some credit, man. The geezer totally deserves to be in there. He's totally got the style to cause any single fighter in the history of the sport problems. Yeah, let's not get that twisted. He's an unbelievably talented southpaw who deserves a lot of respect going in there. And Anthony Joshua obviously clearly respects and knows the threat, because that's why he's in the most unbelievable condition I've seen him in. He's coming in incredibly light, which tells me he's going to maybe try and stop Usyk late or maneuver around him for 12 rounds and use his size and get around for 12 rounds. So if Joshua didn't respect him, I'm sure he'd come in very heavy and just try and annihilate him and get him out of there. But it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Well, that can happen because Joshua can punch very hard, and Joshua's also improving a lot. Joshua's also grown with every fight with more experience. Obviously, Usyk hasn't really set the world alight at heavyweight yet. But do I think he's really come unstuck at heavyweight at all? No, I don't really. I think the Chaz Witherspoon fight, I think they're coming in with a lot of injuries into that fight. And he still beat him fairly easily and stopped him. So I don't see the massive issue with that fight. I think someone said because Witherspoon connected him with a right hand. I was like, it's a boxing match, and you're going to get here. That's just the way boxing is, isn't it? But getting caught once or twice isn't the biggest issue in the world, is it? But you've also got his fight against Chisora. I thought after 4 rounds, he dominated the whole fight. And a couple of times, I think round 7, he was going to stop Chisora potentially. So I don't see the whole. And Chisora's not Anthony Joshua in the sense of way. It had been a style that maybe he wasn't very familiar with. Someone like Chisora just comes all guns blazing, throwing shots he's probably never really seen before. So I don't see why people look into that all too much. And I think he's put on a bit of weight since then, Usyk as well. And he'd have been sparring more heavyweights. I hear he's doing very well against Black Martin Bacoli and whatnot. Obviously, he's going to have to be doing a lot better than final level Martin Bacoli come fight night. But no, I can't believe that some people are overlooking Usyk. My personal opinion is I can definitely make point for an Usyk victory. I don't think he will win. I think Joshua will potentially stop him late, or he might win a close point decision. That's what I think. I can't really see any other outcome. But then again, I wouldn't write off any other outcome. They're still 2 fairly big guys. Joshua still punches very hard. He's still a very good combination puncher. So the fight can essentially end at any time. But the way that people are writing off Usyk completely is just beyond me. I don't understand it.
I think it's madness that people are writing them off. They forget all his achievements and just look at 2 fights.
I I don't understand it. Like these people that are respecting the sport, these people who've seen Usyk fight before, that have been there and been around it all. I just don't seem to understand why they underrate him or essentially maybe overrate Joshua that much. Like Joshua is a very good fighter, an elite heavyweight. I'm not saying overrating this to say he doesn't deserve to be overrated. He does. He's a very, very good fighter. He's got a great resume, and it speaks for itself. But like for anyone to underestimate Usyk that much against anyone, by the way, not even just against Joshua, against anyone ever, has to be silly because that guy is an unbelievable talent. And to fight at the level he has and probably lost a handful of rounds, all in all, just shows you how good of a fighter that man is. So, you know, and to fight them all in their backyards as well, it shows you it's not even just how good he is, like physically in there and his skills and whatnot. Mentally, it just shows you how confident of a fighter is to go to all these fighters' backyards as the champion and that as well, and to win so comfortably and easily. It doesn't faze him. So don't expect Usyk to get fazed when he walks out to 70,000 Brits chanting for him to get knocked out. It won't faze him whatsoever, as we've seen before.
He didn't get fazed in Latvia, did he?
He doesn't get phased ever. Usyk's a fighting man that's fought all over the world as an amateur and professional. Yeah, this guy knows how good he is. He believes in himself. His team believe in him. He's gone back with Lomachenko's father as well. You know, listen, this is a good, tough fight, man. This is a tough fight. I'm really excited for it. As it looks like everyone else is as well. It's a real good fight, you know. So everyone just get excited for it and tune in, and don't be surprised if you see Usyk not just troubling, but maybe get a victory. I find it hard to see Usyk get the fight on the scorecards, if I'm honest. That's why I probably go for a Joshua close decision or potentially late stoppage. I feel like even if Usyk shows that he's hurt a little bit, it might get stopped early or anything. Who knows? But all I hope for is a really good fight and for both fighters to be treated fairly at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a cracking fight. I think AJ is going to have a tough couple of rounds to start off with. You know, Usyk's such a clever fighter, standing out, and he uses his range so well. And I think it might take AJ a couple of rounds to get used to fighting someone so quick on his feet, and hopefully he settles in and gets the job done. But the entire card, I think it's a brilliant card. It's one of the best Eddie's put on in a while, I think. You know, Lawrence Okoli defending his cruiserweight titles. You've got it's co-main event. I think it's going to be a great fight as well. You got Callum Smith, his first fight at light heavyweight.
I'm interested in that because Callum Smith's got a new trainer now as well, isn't he? So
yeah, he has.
That'd be interesting. There's a lot of interesting fights in the card. I mean, it's Andy Joshua does like to put on good undercards usually, so it'd be great. And obviously, it don't get better than the main event, which is a great fight. And I think it's going to be a lot more of a chess match than what people think it's going to be. Like I said, by looking at Joshua's weight, that's the way it looks like it's going to be.
Yeah, I think it will be, like I said, a couple of tough rounds for him, try to figure him out and everything. And I think it will be a points decision. But yeah, all in all, I think it's a really good card and I'm looking forward to it. And I think if people writing off Usyk, they're stupid.
And that's it. And that's what people should always just get excited for big fights like that. Then obviously the winner will then have a mandatory in Joyce, which will be an exciting fight to make for next year against whoever that is. And there we go.
Is Joe going to have a keep busy fight in the interim, or is that something you can't talk about at the moment?
Yeah, of course we will have a keep busy fight. And they will always keep Joe in the best shape possible, and that will be him fighting, getting rounds in. It won't be a keep busy fight because Joe don't take easy fights, so it will be someone over a good level again, maybe better than Takam, maybe of that level. We try to fight Luis Ortiz. That's the level we're looking at. Who's one of the best heavyweights in the world still. I mean, only ever lost to Wilder, and even when he was fighting Wilder, he pretty much won every single round when he was fighting him, but got clipped as you can do with Wilder. He's turned down the fight now again for almost more money than what he got for the Wilder fight, more than what he got for the second fight. So, yeah, there's no real intention to fight Joe Joyce from that side, even though he'd been calling for the fight. So, and even when it was a discussion of more money, it wasn't anything about it. He just didn't want to fight from blank. So, not interested. So it's very hard to get Joe Joyce. Not a lot of people do want to fight him, but we will get him a good opponent. at some point. But yeah, we're looking more at. There was potential for him to fight on the October 9th bill. He was going to headline the October 9th bill, go in Birmingham, but it all got pushed a bit too late in the end. So we're looking a bit more maybe November, mid to late November maybe.
Okay, brilliant.
But he's already in training camp. He's training already, taking over, keeping the weight down, staying in shape. But yeah, he hasn't started sparring or anything yet because no real point doing it without a fight date because you don't know what style he could be fighting yet. But he's still training hard and everything. But yeah, we'll get some news on that soon. We've got a lot of news coming on all of our fights. Actually, we've got Lerone Richards has got some big fight news coming soon. So he'll be fighting for a new belt, and it's not an international belt. Soon, so that'll be announced in the next week or two. He'll be fighting on a big bill in December. So,
oh, brilliant!
He'll be supporting a big show actually. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll have to buy my tickets and get down.
Yeah, that's it. Big show in Manchester. Yeah, so all of our fighters have got fight days. I'm coming off of going to Austria with John Hedges. They went 3-0. Who else we got? Sol Dakers fighting Kamil Sokolowski and a tough fight and a good fight on 9th of October in Liverpool. We've got Guido Vianello going to get his next fight announced soon. He's going to be fighting in the UK for the first time on Sky Sports. He's of top rank. That'll be announced soon. Who else have we got? Got Darius Fulham, our US star. We're going to announce who he's going to be signing with, and he's pro debut soon. Johnny Fisher fights on a Dylan White undercard in another step up, which is another interesting journey with Johnny Fisher. Some news coming soon regarding Cody Davis. Trying not to forget anyone now, but yeah, I think that's it. But yeah, so we've got some stuff going on. We've got some stuff happening, but we've got another new signing being announced soon as well. Some real big interesting news getting announced soon as well regarding SJAM moving forward. Yeah, it's a lot of exciting stuff going on.
So it's double busy at SJAM Boxing at the moment, then, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, always busy, which is good. Business should always be busy, otherwise we're not working hard enough. Always trying to find new ways of providing best stuff for our fighters, the best opportunities. That's what we're supposed to do. And if you're not being busy, then you're not doing good enough for them, I guess, really, are you? So, but yeah, some big news for SJAM coming in the next couple of weeks, maybe a bit sooner. So yeah, should be interesting.
Oh, brilliant. Right, well, thank you very much for your time, and I think everyone needs to keep their eyes on the SJAM Boxing social media channels. It sounds like there's massive amounts of news coming very soon.
Absolutely, man. Take care, and thanks for having me on. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Thank you for your time. Thank you very much.